The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast. Welcome to the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. My name is Mike, here with Sam. Sam, have you ever felt more American than this week?
The patriotism is still buzzing in my body coming off the Olympic gold medal game on Sunday. Obviously, that by the time people are listening to this, that'll have been a couple days ago. But yeah, that's where we start, man. That was an event. Right?
It was. Yes.
It was an actual sports event in the summer in a way that so often we think about the NBA offseason, not just as the NBA offseason, but kind of as sports offseason in general, right? The NFL season hasn't come back yet. The NBA is not in action. There's just a lot of sports that aren't happening in the summer, and it's nice to get the Summer Olympics, but even better to get an outcome like that for Team USA, having to actually persevere a couple of times in their semifinal game against Serbia, where honestly I thought they would lose, and then ultimately in the gold medal game against France.
I love the Olympics. I've said this quite a few times on the podcast. I just love the Olympics in general, every part of it, especially basketball, of course, because it's my favorite sport. It's what we do here on this podcast, and I've watched basically every single Team USA game that I could in the Olympics over the last 20 years, probably more. And I don't really have very many specific memories from specific games. There's one game that always sticks out, 2008 against Spain. There's a whole documentary about that team, so you know the game if you've watched that documentary. That's a game that sticks out in my mind in that I remember that game. Like, I remember specific moments from that game. The gold medal game that just happened, I don't think I will ever forget.
Never.
It was just
Never.
So absurd to, first of all, see Team USA hit on all cylinders at a specific time. But more than anything else, we know the story. It's Steph Curry. We have got to watch Steph Curry be Steph Curry since 2015 as NBA fans. We've got to see him do it against whether it be the Suns, because the Suns were awful back then, although in their 73-win season, the Suns did beat them once. But throughout that whole time, they were just doing that to every team in the league, whether it be Steph, Clay, or Draymond, mostly Steph. And we, as NBA fans that are not Warriors fans, got to sit back and root for Steph Curry and get the full Steph Curry experience in one singular game where he completely took over and made some of the most absurd shots I've ever seen at the highest level of basketball that you can play outside of an NBA championship. Shout out Noah Lyles. And I'll say this. There's nobody that makes me cackle, like legitimately laugh out loud at basketball the way that Steph Curry does.
Absolutely.
Because there's just no other reaction than and then just laugh. Because it's just absurd what he can do on a basketball court.
I mean, look, man, coming off those highlights, if you went into some of the comment threads and whatever after that, there were people saying crazy things about Steph Curry, right? There are people making GOAT arguments all of a sudden, and I don't want to get carried away, but I will say just the joy of watching him play when he's firing on all cylinders. He's been long established as the greatest shooter of all time at this point, right? It's been years and years. But
that's been settled for a while, yes.
Yeah. But he probably is in the top 10 players of all time at this point. I don't know. I'm not here to hash it out right now and really list them, but his legacy grows and grows. And sorry to use the legacy word, but I think it's important because you know how many people watched that game? Normally I know what you'd say to this. You'd say, I don't give a shit about ratings, whatever. And maybe you'd be right, but
it matters in this case because we have a lot of narratives happening here. Yeah.
And we're going to, don't worry guys, we're going to get to the Suns in a second, but let's appreciate greatness too. 20 million people watched this game.
Wow.
20 million people between NBC and Peacock watched that game live. Do you know how many people watched the NBA Finals this year between the Boston Celtics and the Dallas Mavericks?
I'm guessing less than 10 million per game.
No, it was more than 10 million. It was
Okay.
more than 10, but it was 12.
Yeah,
12
so,
million
yeah.
per
Wow.
game for the NBA Finals in 2024 versus this gold medal game against France, which averaged 20 million people. This was an event. And this is why when we talk about the positive media coverage that a guy like Devin Booker all of a sudden is receiving, and not just media coverage, but like a lot of fans who previously did not like him being converted into Devin Booker fans, or people giving Kevin Durant more props maybe than we're accustomed to, a lot of it, like, it's not a coincidence. It's because there are more eyeballs on them. And when
Yes.
they show up in huge events like this, it's literally, in a way, a more career-defining event for these guys than an NBA Finals appearance, which is crazy to say, but that's how many
yeah.
people were watching this.
Well, I think the difference is, and I talked about this online a bit, I think the difference is the way that I got to experience being a Steph Curry fan in that moment and throughout this entire run, everyone else got to experience with all those other players too. Like, I became much more of a fan of Anthony Davis, for example, in this. Because
That's a good
I
point.
think somebody like Devin Booker, for example, got a lot of credit for being willing to take on a role and play that role. And I think more of that should have gone to Anthony Davis as well, because he's an absolute star in the NBA, and he played a role, and he even came off the bench doing it without a single complaint. And very little plays run with him catching the ball to start the play. It was almost always him scoring off of offensive rebounds.
Offensive rebounds, yep. And then
Players
just locking down defensively.
Incredible defense and blocks. Players willing to do that is noticed oftentimes by fans of those teams, right? We know when Devin Booker is playing his level of defense that he can reach. We know when other guys are sacrificing in order to do to make the team better. But people who don't watch the team every game, people who don't really keep up with the ongoing narratives over the course of a long season, they're not going to pick up on that stuff. When you start rooting for them and you start watching them game after game, you pick up on that a lot more. And, I got to, we know who Steph Curry is at this point, and what we saw was the Steph Curry that we saw for years and years and years. There's nothing beyond that. But not everyone knows who Devin Booker is. And I think this is, where we can go to talk about specifically the Suns. People know who KD is, and he still deserves a lot of credit on this team. I think his willingness to sacrifice and the plays that he made at the end of some of these games was so critical. But the experience in rooting for instead of against Devin Booker is a dramatically different experience. And we have got to be the people who have rooted for him. And that is a much smaller group of people than, of course, the entire fandom of basketball itself. And those, at least the Americans, fans, got to experience what it was like to root for him and understand, I think, the big things about him. A willingness to sacrifice in order to win. High IQ play. Extremely good scoring, extremely good passing, and his defense has dramatically improved to a point where maybe we even don't have to talk about it improving. We just can say that he is viewed as a good defender. Now, that narrative has shifted where it's not like we don't even have to talk about the improvement anymore. Dwayne Wade didn't talk about it. He just called him a good defender. He didn't say he used to be bad. Well, he was 18 when he came into the NBA. Of course he was bad. He's just kind of a good defender and viewed as a good defender now. And that experience for a lot of people has just changed how they feel about him, it seems.
Yeah, I mean, you're talking about all the on-court stuff, and I think all of that is entirely valid. I think an equal part of it is people realizing, hopefully, how silly a lot of the off-court criticism of Book has been for 7 or 8 years now. Particularly when you contrast it with the experience of if you're an American and you're rooting for Book and you're seeing the videos of him going around with his camcorder on the streets of Paris or approaching fans wearing his jersey and giving them free shoes or like biking around the city at 6 a.m. I don't know. Like he just seems like a chill, cool, somewhat regular dude. Obviously he's not a regular dude because he's a superstar athlete, but it kind of feels that way, right? And I don't know, I would just hope that combined with all of the on-court plays making people realize, why did I ever dislike this guy in the first place,
There's not a lot of legitimate reasons to dislike him.
Because
right?
of the Joakim Noah or because of the Raptors mascot? Like what?
Yeah.
What? I don't know what people's gripes were over the years. But yeah, it's nice to see a lot of that stuff finally dissipating, and hopefully it carries over. This is the most important part to me. It's nice to see him be a 2-time gold medalist. And I think maybe in a minute, if you want to, we could touch on looking forward to 2028.
We got some questions about that. Yeah, we're going to take some Olympic-related questions.
We could maybe shelve that for a specific question. But, just want to see this momentum carry forward for both him and KD into the Suns season. As they're coming off the Olympics, as some other positive things have happened for the Suns this summer. We had the surprise Tyus Jones signing a few weeks ago. We had Summer League and all that stuff, and we talked about the rookies. But we always say that this is the start of optimism season, right? This is kind of peak optimism season even. And right now, I feel really optimistic about the Suns going into next year. Easily far, far more optimistic than I did, say, 2 or 3 months ago.
And yeah, I agree. I think one thing I didn't expect to happen during this total run is to make me feel differently about the Suns, and I do. I'm just excited to see. I think these guys looked really good, both KD and Devin Booker. They were putting a lot into this team, and they were really doing their best to try to win at all costs. And if that kind of attitude, if that carries over into the season, that could be really helpful. In fact, you can make the case that the year after the last Olympics, which is 2021, the COVID Olympics that was delayed just 3 years ago, the next season was Devin Booker's the best defense he's ever played in the NBA. I think you could look at that season and say that was the best he's looked. And that was after accepting a very similar role to what he did in the past. It's fascinating to think where we have gone with Devin Booker throughout his career. There's been so much that you and I have covered on this podcast. I can't even imagine the amount of hours and minutes that we've spent talking about him. And what we saw yesterday, we're recording this the day after the game, was Devin Booker leading Team USA in scoring at the half of a gold medal game in the Olympics. And there was a moment during that half where I had to sort of take a step back and just appreciate where we were as Suns fans and what we were allowed to appreciate and sort of given the opportunity to appreciate in who he is as a player and what he's become, especially as a 13th overall pick. Completely no hype, really, coming into the NBA. Expected to be, at best, a role player who could shoot threes, and is now, a top 5 American. I think you could make the case when it comes to basketball, because that's where he was in this line of play. And by the way, what we watched too was in the most important moments of the game. In the most important moments, it was Steph, MVP, KD, MVP, LeBron James, MVP, a center, whether it be an MVP in Embiid, or who had played great against Serbia, by the way. I got to give him credit after killing him in this podcast a few times. Or
yeah,
AD.
fair.
And then that fifth guy every time was Devin Booker. He was our guy. It was our guy.
Well, because
Booker.
Because he was capable of being a role player, yes, but he was still better in the role player role than even the role players were. And just one perfect example of that is before Steph's final 3 that he made on like literal double team coverage, insane shot, right? The one before that was generated by Booker catching a pass from KD in the corner, has an open shot if he wants to take it, right? Like the closeout is coming late. If that was Derek White, if that was Drew Holiday in his place in that left corner at that moment in the game, I'm like 80% sure that those guys are just taking that shot. But Booker being the role player, yes, in the Team USA context, but like the supercharged version of one that he is, just being more talented than Derek White, he recognizes the closeout, he attacks it, he draws 2 to the ball by going baseline and whips out like a dart of a pass back out
with
to
his
Curry,
left hand,
who then sidesteps and hits one of his highlight threes, right? So like perfect just exemplification of why he's on the floor in those moments in the first place. Yes, he's a role player, but he's also better than that.
It's probably my favorite Olympic team I've ever watched. 2008 was fun. Didn't really get to watch the Dream Team, of course. I was too young. I was alive, but too young. This team, being able to see the old guys in Steph, LeBron, and KD in particular, And they still got to play with, of course, a Phoenix Suns player, which ups my enjoyment of it overall in Devin Booker. But then the young stars all the way down to Anthony Edwards or at times Tyrese Halliburton. And seeing them all together on this one team and play against, I think, the best competition that there's ever been outside the United States in the Olympics. It's not to say that the times that USA has lost has been worse competition, but
no, it is.
Team USA was worse.
It is the best, and I'm glad you mentioned that because that's which is where I wanted to go next. Before we take any questions about it, is like, let's be honest. The reason this is so memorable to us is not just because it's the last go around for the older generation, but also because Serbia is capable of giving us a competitive fight. And France is capable even of giving us a competitive fight. Yeah. And the world is catching
Germany
up.
was good. Yeah.
Germany is good. The world
Canada,
absolutely...
if they can't step on their own feet, would be pretty good too.
Teams are talking about throwing real money behind the scenes, I'm sure right now, at Gershon Yabusele because that dude was a freaking beast for France. Far and away, their second best player after Wemby, not just in the Team USA game, but he also had an awesome game in their semifinal against Germany. And so, it's good. It's good that the world is catching up. I don't just want to blow out teams by 40 points forever. I want close, memorable games where there's an actual threat. I don't want the sliders to be on rookie. This is a good thing for our sport. It is a global sport, and it's really nice to see.
Devin Booker started every game throughout this entire run, essentially, every Olympic game. Outside of the exhibitions, averaged about 11 points, shot over 50% from the field, over 50% from three, only had 3 turnovers the entire tournament, and was awesome the entire time. The Suns did have another player on the team, and that was Kevin Durant, and he was excellent as well. And Kevin Durant, if he wanted to, if he just asked for it, if he just pushed for it, could have probably also started every single game for this team and played on the court. In those moments as well. It didn't matter, didn't need to. He felt like he could come off the bench. He didn't push for it. He didn't make a big deal out of it.
Who are you?
And he was awesome. And he hit the biggest shot, I think the biggest shot in that Serbian game, right?
It feels like you're throwing some shade at someone there in the way that you're talking about KD's demeanor.
Well, I mean, Jason Tatum has not had a great week on the internet, a great few weeks on the internet. And that includes a few choice comments by me. That I made online, mostly jokes, if I'm being honest. But there's a certain kind of player who's capable, and we'll probably get a question about this, so I won't spend too much time on it. That's capable of being that chameleon, and KD is one of them. KD could have easily led this team in scoring, and they still could have won, and he didn't need to for them to win, and he still was able to be the role player at times and wave off the Embiid screen at other times and hit a clutch shot against Serbia. Devin Booker is another type of player that could do that. Jason Tatum very, very clearly wasn't, and part of that was his jump shot seems to be broken right now. And if you can't make that catch and shoot 3, it's going to be tough to stay on the floor when LeBron James is the other guy holding the ball. He's better at that, so you have to let LeBron James do that, especially after he switched into pure point guard mode. Awesome to see. Any other thoughts? We could take a break after this and we could come back to some questions. We got a bunch of questions that I want to talk about.
Yeah,
Any other thoughts on this team?
No, I'll just let us go to the questions because I know there's a lot of different angles that people want to cover here, and I think honestly, we could talk about just this for an hour.
Yeah, and we will because we're gonna have Olympic questions. Yeah.
Yeah, right. But I mean, I'm hoping there's a little bit more to the episode and the questions too than just Olympic stuff. But we could talk about this for a long time. And so yeah, we'll bring more of it after the break.
Listen, life's all about leveling up. Whether you're handling business on the field or kicking it in your zone, you like to celebrate with cigars that match the moment. That's why you should link up with Famous Cigars to bring you a wild deal. Right now, you can grab 8 premium cigars for just $8. You heard that right. 8 top-rated cigars at $1 a stick. Top quality brands like Oliva, Romeo y Julieta, and Davidoff. Hand-picked just for you and worth over $80. Hit up famouscigars.com/cam and lock in this exclusive deal. While you're there, check out their insane selection of premium cigars, all shipped fresh and fast from their massive 20,000 square foot humidor. That's half a football field. Famous Cigars has been in the game since 1939 and still family owned. So celebrate every win with the folks at Famous. 8 cigars for $8. FamousCigars.com/Cam.
Okay, I asked for some questions online, Olympic-related questions mostly, to talk about this team, because I think we can use this as a nice springboard to talk about the season. I know most of the people that follow me on Twitter, of course, are Suns fans, so I assume a lot of these questions will be related to the upcoming season. So let's take a look at those and go through as many as possible here before we call it a day. Let's see. Let's go here to Wills Rice. First question. This is related to what we were just talking about. Why is it that everyone hated Book and then they see him be himself and now he's loved again? Good question. It's something that we talked about briefly here to start. Sam, you have anything else to add to what we talked about earlier?
Yeah, it's American patriotism combined with literally more people were watching. Again, I'd go back to the ratings thing. It's so easy to just follow memes, right? And just like convince yourself that you're following the sport based on a handful of tweets and Instagram posts and memes and shit like that. But you go back to that COVID finals between the Suns and the Bucks, and I think there were 10 or 11 million people watching those games on average. Not a competition compared to what we just saw, right? Literally twice as many fans were watching this game in the Olympics. So we just needed to literally Clockwork Orange style force people into onto their couches and tape their eyeballs open and make them watch Devin Booker play basketball. And it turned out to be a pretty effective strategy.
And not against their team where they could just add more fuel to hating him, right? Because it's not like there's a lot of Pelicans fans, a team that he kills all the time, who are going to love him. But now if they're all from the United States, they might be rooting for him now and they can love him.
That's a good point. There wasn't a ton of, there wasn't a ton of shit talk. At least there was nothing in poor taste that I saw out of Team USA, right? Like there were a lot of celebrations.
Booker got into it in that France game a little bit. I forget who the player was.
Yeah, I don't remember who the player was anymore. Cornier, maybe.
Cornier, I think it was Cornier. Yeah.
Yeah, but it was like
De Colo, Nando De Colo. I think it was.
Oh, it was Nando De Colo. You're right. It was Nando De Colo, which is funny. But that was like a 5-second thing, and they just walked away from each other. I didn't see them jawing at each other the rest of the game, right? So it was pretty quickly forgotten. All of that just to say, like, I didn't sense too many bad vibes out of teams at the Olympics.
I think another thing that helped hit the perception of Devin Booker throughout this Olympics was the contrast with Jason Tatum. I know we just talked about it, but to see Devin Booker get in there, and it started in the first game with a bunch of Celtics fans and a bunch of NBA fans in general saying, why is Devin Booker playing over Jason Tatum? And every time Jason Tatum stepped on the floor, he made the case for Devin Booker. Let's be honest.
It was self-evident.
He made the case for everyone. He made the case for Steve Kerr as to why Devin Booker was playing. He was better fit for that role, and that means better fit for that team to win. And that's the goal, to win. It's not necessarily about just trying to put stats up or trying to do something. It's not an all-star game. Right? It's not just get every all-star on the court so that they could do something fun. It's about winning a gold medal. And in this case, every time, because of that competition between Suns fans and Celtics fans online, there was this direct contrast that could be made between Devin Booker, who was absolutely thriving in his role, and Jason Tatum, who was failing within that role. And that really helped Devin Booker, I think, a lot. And it really hurt Jason Tatum's perception right after he won a championship. I think a lot of people are really down on him right now.
No, absolutely. And honestly, I was going to say, like, Steve Kerr was already being as diplomatic as possible this entire time. If we're being honest, he did not have to, like, he tried his best to play 10, 11 guys every game and tried his best to give everyone, maybe Tyrese Halliburton got shafted a little bit, but for the most part, everyone was playing 15 minutes. No guy was getting more than like 22, 23 minutes a game, even LeBron, out of 40. And if Kerr was really serious about we're trying to win, he could have just taken that starting five and played them like 32 minutes a game and then given the rest of the guys one stint. And let's be honest, they would have been fine. They would be They
They
would be
definitely got
perfectly-
better the more minutes they played together.
They would be perfectly conditioned to succeed in that type of environment. But Kerr did, in my opinion, the smart thing. He was trying to be diplomatic. He was trying to spread the love. So Celtics fans don't really have anything to complain about, in my opinion. They don't really have any valid gripes.
Right.
Tatum was already getting some minutes. He just was not better than the guys in front of him in the depth chart. Simple as that.
Gareth Giggs said, if you could only pick one, which would make the biggest winning impact for the Suns this season? Let me read that again. If you could only pick one, which would make the biggest winning impact for us this season? Nurk either leads the league in defensive rebounding percentage, shoots 35% from three on decent volume, or improves his rim finishing by 5 to 10%.
5 to 10%. That's a lot.
Yeah, I would say 35% from three on decent volume, I think.
35% from three on decent volume is 1.05 points per. Sorry, I'm going to get real.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah.
Annoying on everyone who hates, nerds like this, but that's 1.05 points per shot. What are his finishing numbers right now? Like 50%?
Yeah, not good.
So, but if he goes up to 55, then that's 1.1 points per shot. I don't know. I'd probably take the finishing. I'll say defensive rebounding is my last priority, only because I'm already confident. Yeah, exactly. He's already good at it. So, like, he doesn't need to be first, because I already know he's probably going to be top 5, top 10. The other stuff he sucks at, and it would be great if he didn't suck at those things.
Yeah. Well, you can make a case for either one of those things. I think that's a good question. I think the reason I would pick shooting is just because the rare combination of a big who's a decent 3-point shooter along with good rebounding and good rim defense, which, believe it or not, he actually played good rim defense last year by every metric that you could have, would make him one of the most rare types of bigs in the NBA, and that makes him overall pretty valuable for a team in that he has to be guarded from three if it's consistent enough, and he's capable of doing real big man stuff, because often it's a choice between one or the other when it comes to shooters. Either you have someone who could do the real big man stuff and they can't shoot, or you have someone who can shoot and they struggle with the real big man stuff. And if you had a player capable of doing both, that's pretty valuable to me. But listen, if he's capable of catching and finishing at the rim, I'm not complaining, because he was struggling to do that last year. Pretty dramatic.
And I just, the thumb injury impeded him so much. I just want him to hit free throws again, too. Like, his free throw percentage just collapsed post All-Star break. And if he can get back up to whatever his career average is, I don't know off the top of my head, but I think it's probably pretty close to 65, 70, which is not what he was doing post All-Star break. If he can get back to that, I'll feel a lot better.
Right. Luis asked, what other sports did you guys watch besides basketball? So this is Olympics related. What did you watch, Sam?
I have to be entirely honest, and I'm sorry if this disappoints you guys. I did not watch, in the traditional sense, other sports outside of basketball. I only saw highlights. I only saw clips. I only saw memes. Exactly in the way that I was just criticizing people who spoke on book doing only those things. That's the reason that I'm not going to speak on other athletes, right?
You don't have pretty strong Noah Lyles takes you want to get off?
I was
right
just
here?
about to say I've heard the name Noah Lyles way too many times. Enough times for a lifetime, and I would prefer if we don't mention his name again for the duration of this podcast. My favorite non-basketball athlete at the Olympics this year was probably that Turkish shooter who said that he didn't need any special equipment because he's a natural shooter. That guy rocks. I don't know what his name is, but he seems pretty sick.
I did find it funny that Noah Lyles, who is only famous once every 4 years, that type of athlete, was confused why Anthony Edwards has a shoe and he doesn't. It's like Anthony Edwards plays 82 games a year with millions of people watching every single one, plus all the playoff games. That could be why. That's free commercials for Nike. Just guessing.
He's doing it. He's just doing it because he knows we're falling into the trap, man.
It's true. It's true.
Falling into his clutches. He knows that this is how he stays relevant. If he wages a war against the NBA fans, then he gets to stay relevant and not just be a guy that we talk about every 4 years. But I look, I will say, track is a funny sport because there are people who are fast and they're also cool. And then there are people who are really fast and they're not necessarily charismatic. They're not, like, I don't know that Noah Lyles. Usain Bolt was cool. right? Like he just had an
was.
effortlessness about him that made it, and obviously he wasn't even American, but like everyone kind of worshipped Usain Bolt. And Noah Lyles, I think, is clearly the fastest man on the planet right now. He has that claim to fame if he wants to use it, but I think he's struggling a little bit at the charismatic part of the equation, sort of grasping at straws for how he's going to make his bucks.
I watched tennis as much as I could. I watched some of the gymnastic stuff, but mostly I watched both the men and women's basketball. I watched as much as I could of both of those. And then like you, I watched a lot of highlights and stuff later. It just didn't line up well with our time zone. So, working a lot during the games. During the Olympics. So it's tough to watch all of this stuff. Another non-basketball related question, Chris Anderson, should breakdancing be in the Olympics? What do you think, Sam?
I didn't watch it. I didn't even watch the highlights of that one.
I'll tell you that it shouldn't be in the Olympics.
Why not?
It's just not the right place for that. It looks awkward as hell. Just watch the highlights and you'll understand what I mean right away. All the lights are on. It's there's two guys standing on the stage looking at each other, a little unsure of what to do on camera, and it's just very, very awkward. It takes everything that was cool about breakdancing away from it, and it makes it not cool. Which somehow even in skateboarding didn't happen. Like the skateboarding in the Olympics is still pretty cool. I think it should not be there.
Olympic skateboarding is definitely cool. I think it's just hard to take any new sport that doesn't have, like, the Olympics is so much about branding and it's so much about history. And every once in a while people come up with the argument of why are NBA athletes in the Olympics in the first place, right? Like why don't we go back to just sending a bunch of amateur hoopers? I mean, that's basically already what the 3-on-3 aspect of that tournament is, right? But it's so iconic at this point, right? The history of Olympic basketball is so iconic that you can't imagine removing it. It's a little bit harder to begin a tradition of a new sport in 2024. I'll actually be interested. I don't know if anyone brought this up in the questions, but your favorite sport, baseball, is going to be present in 2028.
Oh, is it? Oh, is that true?
Yeah.
I didn't know that. Yeah.
Yeah, and that will be interesting. I think that actually would be kind of fun to watch. There is the World Baseball Classic already that kind of exists as, the a little bit more arcade style. I mean, it's real baseball, but it's a little bit more loose and fun. But I think having a sport like baseball, another traditional sport where I think it's going to be some of the best representing each country, because it's at the Olympics, I think there's going to be an extra level of seriousness to any team sport like that, whether it's basketball, baseball, whatever. So that'll be cool. Breakdancing, I don't know.
2028, Los Angeles. Somebody on Discord, I just want to mention this to you, pointed out that will be the 10th year of this podcast. How weird is that to think about?
If we make it.
If we make it. Yeah, we'll see.
I think we're going to make it.
Yeah, I have no plans to stop anytime soon.
You got any beef with me you want to unload right now? You want to air your grievances?
I got 4 years to think about it, I guess.
We should do an airing of grievances.
Yeah.
Maybe Discord or a Patreon
a Festivus episode? Yeah.
A Festivus episode where we just complain about each other for an hour. I would enjoy that.
SoCal Sun since it's a hot topic, what do y'all think happened to Tatum? This is a Tatum episode, basically. Feels like he went from inconsistent offensively to just totally inept in the last few months, and I don't get how that could just happen so suddenly. So this is a good question because it's sort of related to what we were talking about, but not directly related. But I wanted to bring up something that happened that we talked about on this podcast last year, and that was during the FIBA tournament that was a year ago that featured Anthony Edwards as essentially the best player and possibly Mikal Bridges as the second best player on that team, and they lost, right? Yeah. I don't think they even medaled. I think they got fourth place because they lost the game against Canada as well. Canada got bronze. And the reason I bring that up is to remind everyone of Brandon Ingram on that team, because Brandon Ingram probably should have been the second best player on that team, and he was bad.
Yeah, talent-wise, he was up there.
He could not figure out how to play a role on a team where the decisions needed to be made quickly in order for the team to be good. Does that mean that Brandon Ingram was bad ever since then? No, he's pretty good. In fact, I think he averaged the most assists he ever averaged last season and 25 plus points. If he's at 25-5 the season after that, then he's still pretty good offensively. But the difference is when you're playing with other extremely talented players and you're not going to be the best player on the ball, you have to be a great player off the ball as well. And if you can't figure out the balance between doing that and doing what they did before in the NBA as the main star player, you're not going to be good in a context like this. Mm-hmm. So Tatum will probably be very good at offense this upcoming season because overall he's a very good offensive player. But if he's not going to be the best offensive player with the ball in his hands on a team that has Steph Curry and it has LeBron James, then he has to be good off the ball, and he couldn't figure out how to do that. And that's just what it is.
To a little bit of a lesser extent, because as you said, he played really well against Serbia, but this is kind of what happened to Joel Embiid too, right? He spent the entire tournament not quite understanding how to thrive off the ball, and obviously they weren't just going to dump him the ball and give him his usual 20 post touches a game like he does in Philly. I think a lot of players would have struggled with this, even the international players. Like, you know, if Giannis were an American, let's imagine an alternate reality where Giannis Antetokounmpo is on this team.
Yeah.
Would he have struggled too?
He'd have to be AD, yeah.
There's just so many types of guys who would struggle with this. And honestly, the list of guys who wouldn't is very small. It's like Jokic would always be fine. I don't know. You could make a case that Luka would struggle too if he were American.
Yeah.
Right? Wemby,
well, he might be worthy of having the ball in his hands a lot.
He might be worthy over LeBron. I don't know.
When LeBron's not in the game, at the very least.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in other words, Jason Tatum is the LeBron James of Brandon Ingram's.
Perfect.
That's the way to put it.
Exactly.
John Voida, editor
what's up,
at
John?
Bright Side of the Sun, host of Suns Jam podcast, asks, is there anything you could take away from Devin Booker's performance that is translatable to the Suns this next season? What do you think, Sam?
I wish I had his stats up right now because I brought this up on our episode last week, midweek, about him taking more threes, but I don't actually know. He definitely took more threes on like a per 36, 40, whatever you want to say, minute basis, right?
As far as a ratio of 2s to 3s, it was a lot more 3s, yeah.
Yeah, and how much of that is translatable? Obviously, a lot of it is not. He's not going to play like Klay Thompson next year per se, but if Bud and KD has talked about this too, wanting an offensive system with more movement, even when there are multiple of KD and Book and Beal on the floor at the same time, then hopefully we see some of that, some of that movement translate that we saw in Book's game in the past couple of weeks. We see it on the court as well. He's not going to be initiating quite as many plays offensively where he just gets instantly doubled, because to a certain extent we also understand that that's now Tyus Jones's job. Is Tyus Jones going to be taking all of Devin Booker's touches and, they're suddenly going to be running a pick and roll, top of the key, heavy offense? No, that's not what's going to be happening. But I'm just talking about bringing it back a tiny bit into the opposite direction from where we've been going, putting the ball more and more in Devin Booker's hands over the past couple of years. Now maybe we can get him to relax just a little bit and focus on being more of an off-ball threat. Just a little bit. Outside of that, I mean, defense, is going to be important for him this year. I think we've talked about how maybe we actually think that he regressed defensively last season.
That's where it is to me, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think, again, it stands to reason. We know he can play defense. We've seen so much evidence of it now. And if he has less of an offensive load on his shoulders, then maybe some of that energy will translate into the defensive end. That's the theory, right? So we'll see if that bears out. But what do you think?
It's the defense for me. Look, like we can talk about how he could play differently overall. Yeah, maybe shooting a few more threes than 2s. He did average 27 and 7 last year, which was essentially his greatest season as far as assists and points combined.
Oh man, his playmaking was so fucking good last year.
It really was amazing, and he was a really good player last year overall. But if he could figure out a way, this is hard to ask because when you're sort of not tasked with handling the ball a lot, it's easier to maintain high level and high energy level of defense. Guarding guys full court the way Devin Booker did, getting guys out of their offense pretty regularly, as if he was Mikal Bridges. Basically, he played a Mikal Bridges role on this team. I don't expect him to do that. Like, I'm not going to ask him. We're not going to be asking him to guard guys full court next season. But if he could find a way to save some energy on offense, and maybe that's what Tyus Jones is there for, so that he can play a higher level of defense, I think that would be the ideal version of this team. Because, look, the team we're looking at, the starting lineup with Tyus Jones, Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and, whoever else, KD and Nurkic, that's who it's going to be. But just 3 guards playing at once, they're going to have to guard. They're going to have to guard. Devin Booker, Bradley Beal, and Kevin Durant are going to have to play defense. So that means if Devin Booker can get close to, maybe not quite at this level because he has the burden of offense, if he can get close to the level of defense that he was playing with Team USA on the Suns next season, they can be pretty good. Like, they can be pretty good. That raises the overall level of defense on the team pretty dramatically.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we know what the offensive potential is of this team now that they brought in the pieces they have. Tyus and Monte in particular are real ceiling raisers for this team offensively. It just needs to not all be at the expense of their defense, right? Frank Vogel, say what you will about him, did a very good job of taking a limited defensive personnel and turning them into, post-All-Star break, a borderline top 10 defense. And he really made a lot of progress with that group. And, we need to not see it all collapse under Bud. So Book's going to play a big role there. KD's going to play a big role.
All right. Stephen Burt asks, does Coach Bud have the best odds of being part of the 2028 Olympics outside of KD and Book? Coach Bud.
Among Suns players?
Among Suns personnel.
Or sorry, among
Suns,
Suns personnel.
I think KD is probably was KD's last Olympics, right? I mean, I don't know. Maybe not. Maybe not.
No. Well, I saw someone reported that they would give him a spot if he can play.
Right.
Like in 2028, he'll be the age that LeBron is right now.
Yeah, that's true. And he could sit on the bench in the important games if he doesn't have it in his legs anymore. But
here's the thing: KD's got an injury history. We all know about it. But also, can he just is there a chance that at the age of 40, KD could just stand there and hit threes at 40%? Yeah, he could probably do that.
Yeah,
he'll probably always be able to do that. He could probably do that at 55 years old.
Mm-hmm.
So, I'm not gonna say it's unthinkable that KD doesn't return for a potential 5th gold medal in 2028.
Yeah. If Book is healthy, he'll be there. I'll say that.
The theoretical...
Kerr loves Devin Booker.
He does. He made that clear so many times during this press run. The leaders, the main guys who will return to the team in 2028, who will be on paper leading the team next time, will be Booker, Edwards, Tatum, and Halliburton. Those are the 4 guys who you should expect in another 4 years will be, either still in their primes or not far past their primes. Bam too, maybe.
Yeah, I think
Bam would get a spot again in 4 years.
Yeah.
That's only 5 guys, and that leaves a lot of open spots. And we probably got some questions about this. I don't know if you know, but there's a lot of guys.
The next question is directly. The next 2 questions. In fact, I'm going to read these both together. This is one. The first one's from Cody. He says, "Who won't be on the 2028 roster outside of the old guys? For example, Derek White was an one-time Olympian, right? Question mark.
Yeah,
so that's a good
Derek
question.
White's not going to be there.
Probably not.
Drew Holiday's not going to be there.
There's going to be another Derek White or Drew Holiday at some point, right, in the future. And
Anthony
then
Davis.
Secondary.
I really doubt it.
Secondary part to that question. This is from Mark. What players who didn't make the 2024 roster would you like to see make the 2028 team? Mm-hmm. And then alternatively, which NBA stars would struggle to play with the FIBA rules and who would thrive? So, those are great questions. I haven't thought too far ahead as far as 2028 and who could be there. We've been making jokes about Cooper Flagg.
If he's
it's
ready.
Not really a joke, right? If you want the future if he is as good as he is being hyped up to be, So that's 4 years from now. What is he, 20? So he'd be 21, right? Or 22 probably around then for the Olympics. So that gives him, that could be the guy who plays for who knows how many Olympics if he's as good as he's hyped up to be. So we're going to assume
Absolutely.
Cooper Flagg will be there.
If he can actually play. The thing is, this is so hard to predict because there are guys who right now are 21, 22 years old who in another 4 years are going to be like multiple time All-Stars. And we just don't know exactly who that is right now. I could give you a guess, like maybe Chet Holmgren, maybe Jalen Williams, two potential guys from the OKC Thunder who are in that age bracket.
Yeah.
Maybe Paolo Banchero, who was on the FIBA team last summer and who struggled. That's an example of one guy who I think, if he can't shoot, does struggle in the FIBA rules. But, he's like 22. So in another 4 years, could he be on the team? Absolutely.
Jalen Brunson. He's got to be there, right? He's got to be. He was like a top 10 player in the NBA last year. So if he can keep that up in any way, he's small. So who knows?
I love Jalen Brunson, but also like he's already kind of old. So
it is kind of interesting to think.
I don't want to promise anything about what Jalen Brunson looks like in 4 years. We don't know. Like how about
also,
Tyrese Maxey?
Would Jalen Brunson be good at actually be shifting off the ball? Because Maxey would be.
Yeah, but Maxey would be a lot better than Brunson at that.
I think he would be, which is Brunson is a better player, I think, right now. But maybe he wouldn't be as good at accepting the role. Maybe he would be a little bit of Jason Tatum in that role.
Put it this way, we didn't maybe you didn't see too much of this because you're not like a Knicks fan, and this was a big thing in the Knicks fandom. But like Brunson's a better player based on last season than Halliburton. I think it's narrow, but he is.
Yes,
there's a reason Halliburton
I think
made the
clear,
team.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Halliburton made the team. Brunson didn't.
That's true.
That happened for a reason. But Brunson could absolutely be there in 4 years. Your favorite guy, Donovan Mitchell, could still be there too. He could still be really freaking
helpful.
good in 4 years.
Yeah.
John Morant could be there in 4 years if he's not a total off-court
Mikal
liability,
Bridges?
Getting himself in trouble. Mikal Bridges could be there in 4 years.
He could be the Drew Holiday, or even like Josh Hart could be the Drew Holiday of that team.
I would be shocked if Josh Hart is still this good in 4 years, but
that's true. But he's a perfect type of player to play really well in that role. You know what I mean?
I'll tell you who's going to be Josh Hart in 4 years. Josh Hart in 4 years is going to be Ryan Dunn, and he is going to be representing at the Olympics in 2028 is what we're all hoping for. So, we just threw out a ton of names. It's hard to predict exactly who's still going to be good, and also I just guarantee. How about this guy that we haven't mentioned? How did he become an afterthought and the 15th name who gets brought up? Is Zion Williamson capable of suiting up for Team USA in another 4 years? I don't think anyone has faith in that proposition, but it would be helpful if he could help us out, right? Like, he's a really talented player and brings a really unique skill set. He's basically... to bring this guy up for the second time today, Gershon Yabusele on steroids. It's the same sort of body type, so it would be nice if Zion could be there. But if
he can find a way to maintain his health and actually be capable of figuring out a way, we just talked about the struggle that Brandon Ingram had, and Brandon Ingram and Zion have struggled to play together. Maybe we can shift the blame on Brandon Ingram, considering his inability to figure out a way to play on Team USA. But if Zion, I don't know, like part of the question is who would struggle to play in FIBA rules? Would it potentially be Zion? Maybe not. Like, would he be willing to be just like sort of a, garbage, picking up the garbage type big like AD was willing to do, constantly getting the offensive rebounds, setting screens without really being rewarded over and over again for it?
Yeah. And that's the part we can't predict, right? Is who are going to be the role players on the team. The Derek Whites, the Drew Holidays, the Bam Adebayos. The Bam Adebayo in 2028 might just be Bam Adebayo. But in some of these other cases, it's going to be guys who we can't really anticipate right now, who ascend into a new tier in the NBA within the next 2 years or so.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yeah, I think Devin Booker will be there. Like, who were the four that you said? Devin Booker, Tyrese Halliburton, Anthony Edwards.
And Tatum.
And Tatum,
Tatum's he's gonna be there in 4 years. He's still gonna be a great NBA player with a resume to point to.
What role do you think he will play? This is a question from Chad Walk. What role does Devin Booker play in 2028? Is he still going to be the off the ball type guy? It's fascinating.
He'll have to be. Go ahead. Sorry.
I listened to Bill Simmons with Doc Rivers talk about the gold medal game, and Doc Rivers had this great quote. He said, I took a lot of tests in my day. I never had all the answers. And he was describing how LeBron James and Steph Curry played in those games, in that they were not the most athletic anymore, not in any way, but they had every answer because of the amount of experience that they had. So the ball ended up being in their hands because they've seen every type of defense thrown at them over the years. So the decision making in those moments was the most ideal. So it's kind of fascinating to think about where Devin Booker could be at that point of his career. And will he be the guy that potentially has the answers to the defense at that point where, even though maybe he's not the most athletic at that point of his career, which he will be, in his 30s at that point.
Yeah, but what will he be? 30, 31?
32 maybe? Yeah.
Like not
very old, yeah.
Not very old, but yeah, he will be officially 30.
Yes, exactly. But Anthony Edwards will be, 27 or whatever, in his absolute prime. What will it still be Devin Booker playing off the ball at that time of his career, or will he shift into the guy that sort of has the ball in those big moments and makes the decisions? It could be kind of fascinating to find out.
I'll tell you this. We know who Steve Kerr likes more at this point. And
well, yeah, and was not very good in the real big moments of this last tournament.
And I
like Anthony Edwards. He wasn't very good in those moments.
But we anticipate that Kerr's still going to be coaching the team in 2028, correct?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think he should. I think he's done a good job regardless of what people thought early on. I mean, a lot of the criticism he got was not playing Jason Tatum.
Literally,
and I think we saw why.
No matter what coach you had in there, no matter what they did, they were going to get... You're going to have vitriol directed at you for being in that position. That's just one of those hard positions. Well, talk about a thankless job. Not that I'm Steve Kerr's biggest fan or anything, but if you're Team USA's head coach and you take the gold, congrats, you did exactly what you were supposed to do. And if you have any other result, then you're the worst person in the world.
Yeah.
And you have 12 egos to manage. It's a very difficult job. Kerr did the best job he could. He really
12
did.
egos of people who make 10 times more than you to manage. Yeah, it's pretty difficult. Vincent says, if a Suns player besides Booker makes the Olympics in 2028, who would that be?
Ryan Dunn. I already said it.
You know what?
Is there like an outside chance that Oso Ighodaro is the Bam Adebayo of 2028?
God, I hope so. God, I sure hope so. I was trying to think of a joke I could make about like a star player ending up on the Suns before then, like Steph Curry or someone. But I'm trying to think of someone who would be young enough to play on the team and still be available to play by then. I don't know. Maybe Tatum's on the Suns by then. Sorry, Alma, if you're listening. Anyone else? That's the only guys, right? There's not a lot of young talent on the Suns. I'm sorry, guys. Hard to think of it's not like Beal's going to be in it at that point. And KD is the other guy, really, if he's still on the Suns.
Yeah, I mean, we just don't know. By 2028, they easily could have traded for someone that...
I hope they have a young star player on the team in 2028. I'll tell you that much. I don't care if he's American or not.
You know who's destined to be a Sun? He might be a Sun as
Kevin
like a
Love.
third... Kevin Love's on his way out, but Donovan Mitchell is going to be a Sun at some point. He's, we might get
he's like 34.
Exactly. We might get the 36-year-old like Michael Redd version of him who plays 12 minutes per game off the bench. But the amount of jokes we've made at Donovan Mitchell's expense over the years, and he's a tremendously talented basketball player, but he has to be a Sun at some point, even if Booker's still on the roster.
This is from Don Gianni. Great name. Who should we cut or trade to make way for signing Yabusele to a minimum?
Okay, yeah, so we have to talk about that. Guys,
he has some ideas, but what do you think? Yeah,
I have bad news.
Uh-huh. So
first of all, for anyone who didn't watch, Gershon Yabusele is like 6'8" and 260 pounds. He's a body type. I mean, people were calling him Ben Wallace, I think, which made me laugh because someone isn't Ben Wallace just because they have an afro. They literally just both have afros, right? Like the way he plays is not similar to Ben Wallace, other than the fact that he is muscular and has an afro. He's very much a power forward, but he obviously had the poster dunk on LeBron that everyone saw.
He's like a Draymond-sized power forward, though.
He's a Draymond-sized power forward who's even bigger than Draymond. Yeah. He's beefy. He can rebound the ball well. He can give you a little bit of rim protection. Can he move his feet on the perimeter enough to like guard? If I'm not talking about EuroLeague for a second, but like if you were in the NBA, with NBA spacing, how well is he going to move his feet to guard multiple positions, like guard up to 2s and 3s? I don't know. I really don't. I think maybe he can do a solid enough job of it, but I don't know. But he's playing for Real Madrid in the EuroLeague. He's been shooting like 40-45% from the slightly shorter EuroLeague 3 there for the past few years. So, yes, it's a foot or two closer, but also that's a high percentage. And he's just really huge. This is not like fake David Roddy, we call him a big wing, but he's actually 6'4", huge. This is an actual guy who's 6'8" and has like a 7'2", 7'3" wingspan. So I think Yabusele could absolutely play in the NBA. The unfortunate part, the Suns not going to get him.
I don't know.
No, man, it's not going to happen. I'll tell you why right now. His buyout is $2.5 million because he's on the last year of his deal with Real Madrid. $2.5 million buyout. NBA teams are literally not allowed to contribute that much money towards an international player's buyout. They can contribute up to $900,000, last I checked, which means Yabusele himself, if he wants to play in the NBA, has to pay about $1.5 million out of his own pocket to do so. And he's not going to do that for a team that offers him a minimum contract. He's just not. He'll do that.
He himself said he wants another chance. Now, whether or not that was NBA related, we don't know, but it seemed like it was.
I think he wants another chance in the NBA. I think
he's saying he's going to get a bigger contract than that.
I'm saying just imagine it from your perspective, right? If you get, you have to pay, you want to be back in the NBA, but you know that to do so, you have to pay $1.5 million out of your own pocket.
And you're going to get a $3 million contract.
And you also know that Real Madrid, if you just stay with them, is probably paying you, like $3 million. So what's the amount that makes it worth it to return to the NBA? It's probably like $5, $6, $7 million, right? If he gets something in that range from a team that isn't constrained by the second apron, I don't know. Who still has cap space? The Jazz?
The Jazz, yeah.
If I'm the Jazz, I'd throw him $6 million a year.
And then trade him at the trade deadline. Yeah, I could see them doing that, actually.
I don't want to make everything out of, I know the NBA is a different beast.
Different rules, yeah.
Different rules. But, he was busting people's ass at the Olympics. And if we're talking about $6 million, I think he can live up to that.
But Fournier was good in the Olympics, though.
If we're talking about what
we
the
have
Suns
to really
could
figure
offer,
out what is real and what isn't.
If we're talking about what the Suns could offer, it's only a minimum contract, and he's not going to take that. He's just not.
The only thing I'll say is this: I did look at Matt Ishbia's net worth today, and it is now being reported at over $10 billion. That's not what it was when he bought the Suns. It's gone up pretty dramatically in the last few years. And look, even $900,000 is a lot for a lot of NBA teams. $1 million essentially to get a guy from here. And the calculus for other NBA teams, like say the Jazz, would be $900,000 for nothing, essentially just to buy him out of his contract, and then the extra $1.5 million added onto whatever contract they were willing to give him. So you're talking about a team potentially spending $8 million on Gershon Yabusele. Which maybe a team will be willing to do, maybe not. Maybe there's a bunch of NBA owners who are saying, well, no, we already have rosters full of guys. We're not going to spend $900,000 to buy a player out of a contract. We're good.
I mean,
but there's one owner who $900,000 does not scare. There's one owner. That's all I'm saying. We know it doesn't scare him.
Yeah.
So that's all I'm saying. If it's his only opportunity, I didn't expect Tyus Jones to sign a minimum with the Suns. I'm just not taking anything off the table yet.
I will say, there are always risks. It depends on how desperately he wants to play in the NBA. But, he's got 1 year left on his deal. He could just wait. Just wait a year.
No, it's true.
And then you don't need anyone to buy you out, and you can go sign for whatever next summer. But I understand why.
If he was signed before July 15th, his buyout was $1 million.
Well, if he was signed before July 15th, no one would have reacted to the news because no one knew who he was.
Yeah.
But in the last month, he's made such a name for himself. And this is what's fascinating about, he must be having, him and his agent, whoever that is, must be having a really good week. Just kind of
good time
talking about the possibilities.
This is a good time to say that the Suns did recently make a change in their front office. This was reported by Michael Scotto, who said the Suns are hiring Orlando. I don't know how to say this name. I should have probably figured it out before. Taliaferro, I'm guessing, as their director of scouting, a new director of scouting. Taliaferro was previously a scout for the Brooklyn Nets. Now, it's interesting, I think, to bring this up as part of this conversation, because had Gershon been signed before July 15th, the Suns probably could have had him. Let's just put it that way. But you also need good scouts to see things before everyone else does. And they did change up the scouting department. This was reported that they let a few people go about a few weeks ago. I don't know if we ever talked about that on the podcast, Sam. Do you remember?
I
don't think
I can't remember.
They're
No,
making
I guess not.
changes on the
Yeah, they
scouting
are.
department, and based on what we're seeing, they might be pretty widespread changes as far as what they're doing when it comes to scouting. Now, scouting is not, of course, just college. You have guys all over the world scouting. You have guys going to other arenas and scouting other NBA teams. It's scouting all over the place, right? You want to have a network of scouts that give you good information that you can use to make decisions for your basketball team. And they are changing some things around with their scouting. No real thoughts on that other than the fact that over the years, the Nets have drafted some good and interesting players, and they have some misses as well, as every team kind of does. But any thoughts on that?
I have a joke that I thought about making, but I really shouldn't make, about the Nets and a certain trade they made with the Suns a year ago. And how maybe that relates to some of the guys we're poaching from that organization now. Anyway, that's all I have.
Well, they did. I mean, the Suns did take another guy from that organization, DJ Matty Tellem, recently. So I imagine there's some previous relationship.
3-team trades.
Yeah, between Taliaferri and
we haven't seen a 3-team trade yet, have we?
No, I'm not sure they
Matty
exist.
Tellem.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
This is an excellent question. I'm glad it was asked because I've had a lot of time to think about this. This is from AZ Kirst. He said, what FIBA rules would you guys like to see implemented in the NBA, if any? Watching these Olympic Games, the pace seemed faster and things seemed more enjoyable, ? And I have found myself thinking watching these Olympic Games, and yes, I am a prisoner of the moment sometimes, as we all are, especially people with a podcast. But I found myself thinking, just do this in the NBA, but for 48 minutes. I like all of this. I like the distance between the three-point line. I like the lack of 3 seconds being called. I like the ability to tip the ball off the rim. I kind of like all of this. And I've never really felt that way before watching FIBA games.
The 3 seconds and tipping the ball off the rim is fine. I still think the NBA really benefits from that extra layer of space that you can only get with
What's the
maximal.
benefit?
What do you mean, what's the benefit?
It's just better offense, right?
Yeah, but then the defense, it's better offense, yes, but then the defense has to learn how to adapt to that, right? So, like, the NBA, who was talking about this the other day? I think it was Dennis Schroeder was, like, doing the stereotypical European, like, oh, European hoops is more IQ or whatever. And I was thinking, like, yeah, he might be right, but they need to be smarter basketball players because they're less talented. And I don't mean that in like any type of way. It's just a fact, sort of. That the NBA has the most talented players on the planet.
Most of these non-American teams have like 3 or 4 NBA players at most, and those are the 3 or 4 best players on their team. Yeah.
And so you maximize the space that NBA players have to work with. Yes, you're making the offense better, but in a way, you're also making the defense better because now the defense has to do more. The strategies have to be better. I just think it's a better product.
Offenses are too good, Sam. They're too good. What do we have to do something to combat that over time?
We're already doing the lack of defensive 3 seconds. That helps. That already helps.
I mean, there's just things I think that were good about this game that I appreciate.
I'll tell you what's really good.
I apprecited the types of lineups. Let me tell you something that's big
really
and
good.
Small. Mm-hmm.
Everyone can agree on this, except for the executives. Lack of unnecessary TV timeouts in the final 5 minutes of a game or 2 minutes of a game.
Yeah.
I mean, just there was so much less fluff to watching the end of these Olympic Games that doesn't, take the excitement out of the room.
Yeah.
And it's just because it's a less commercialized product, and us being the United States of America, and also just all of the NBA players wanting their salaries to be what they are. I get it. It sort of requires it to be this hyper commercialized product, but you have to admit that watching the Olympics and seeing the lack of all that, like TV fanfare, is attractive. It's very attractive.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. There's a lot they can learn. That's all I'm saying. I mean, would you be okay if they just immediately got rid of the traditional goaltending rule and made it more of a FIBA style rule? Like, would that be okay with you?
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, what's the worst that could happen? Who's going to benefit most from that rule? Wemby, Gobert, the French guys.
You're right. Never mind. I take it back.
Jaren Jackson Jr. benefits from this too much, so we can't do it. I think it'll be fine. It'll be fine.
I like the less space. I found myself enjoying the fact that there was less space. I think that the idea of being forced to move the ball more because of the lack of space and do less attacking. And listen, even the best moments of the game were ISOs overall. So that's just kind of what basketball breaks down to at one point or the other. Who's better at that? So it still goes to that at some point. But I actually found myself enjoying the lack of space a little bit more. All right, that's enough Olympics talk for now. We appreciate everyone for listening. We had to do a whole episode about the Olympics because it was too fun, and I had a great time watching our boys in Devin Booker and Kevin Durant play great. We'll be back with a Patreon episode midweek, hopefully talking about the schedule. We have some schedule news now, but hopefully a full schedule breakdown on Patreon this week. If you want to sign up, it's patreon.com/thetimeline. We appreciate you all, and we'll be back very soon.
For over a century, Johnny Walker has shared its bold spirit with the game of golf. Now, crafted with Devereaux Golf, Johnny Walker introduces the Johnny Walker Blue Label-inspired Sunday Golf Bag, elevating the game with sleek design, Blue Label hues, and refined gold accents. Celebrate your hole-in-one with a premium Sunday bag crafted by Devereaux Golf. Submit proof of your achievement to johnnywalker.com/blue-in-1. Please drink responsibly.